All right, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Showalter.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Howard.
Here.
Redland.
Here.
Thompson.
Here. Show me the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, nobody signed up for public comment. No presentations or proclamations. We'll move on to 4, the consent agenda. February 22nd, commission meetings, February 28th, special commission meetings, and appropriation ordinances of 2022-05, 2022-05A, and 2022-P05. I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Moved by Commissioner Redland,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Howard. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Redland.
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes.
Myers.
Here. Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to 5 formal actions, starting with ordinance 1744 regarding the water rates. Kent?
Commissioners, Mayor Thompson and Commissioners, this is an ordinance as a result of the last meeting where we had a presentation from KMEA, Kansas Municipal Energy Agency, regarding the water retail rate review that they conducted. Discussed it the last time, and the ordinance does do a small increase to water rates. Increases the customer charge by $1 and the usage rate by a nickel for each 100 cubic feet, up to 4,000 cubic feet. And then over 4,000 cubic feet, which ends up in the neighborhood of 28,000 gallons, a little bit more than that, would be an increase of 20 cents per 100 cubic feet after that. So for the larger users. The staff had sought direction. We started this review earlier, and I'm just doing this for the public information part of it. And at the end of 2020, and because of various reasons, it came to this point when it was presented to the commission. At that time in 2020, the water fund had basically been on an annual basis negative. We were using up reserves every single year from 2015 to 2019 for a couple different reasons. We've been able to rebound a little bit over 2020 and 2021, but going forward and for all the different things that are occurring with the water system, as a result of the retail rate review and also from staff reviewing it themselves, they recommended a small increase to occur. This is what the commission directed at last meeting, and this is what's presented to you tonight.
Okay, and put you on the spot, do you remember, I recall that there was information about approximately for the average user what the extra cost would be prorated over like a full year. Do you remember what that amount was?
Most of the time, especially for the winter usage, it was less than, it was going to be less than $2 increase. So if you did that over a full year, it'd be $24, a little bit under that. So now that depends on your summer usage. Obviously, your summer, most people's summer usage, they water a little bit more for their outside water usage than in the winter, but just taking that, if there's an average of about, and that's what it was for our system, was a little over 5,000 gallons, and I can't calculate that into cubic feet thank you for the math problem.
My pleasure.
But our average is about little over 5,000 gallons for customers in the system as far as winter usage. Summer usage is a little more than double that. So it'll be a little bit more in the summer, but for the winter, it'll be less than $2 on their bill.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I appreciate KMEA taking the time to do the study for us. I think it was well thought out and very detailed, gave us a good roadmap for, the decisions that we have to make. I don't think that anybody likes to raise any utility rates, but, if you look at the numbers, I don't know that we really have any other choice but then to try to make some kind of small incremental increase. And like I pointed out last meeting, I think it's really important that we notify that it doesn't raise the rates for low-income families, which is important, I know, to all of us. So I think that's a big deal.
Actually, I do need a correction on that, Jason. Our current code is that the lower income is charged 15% less
Okay.
than regular customers. So there will be a small increase to lower income customers as well. But that's what the code says currently. If you wanted to change that, so it wouldn't, we could do that. We could revise it and then present it at next meeting as well.
That honestly, that would be the direction that I would want to go. I don't ever like to see an increase on low-income families. I think if we can do anything to avoid that, that would be a priority for my chair.
I think, and I kind of agree, not necessarily in general for this specific change, because I do feel like it is a very negligible change, even though it is a little bit increase. But just as it is now, qualifications to be low income is any household income less than $18,000, which for a single person in household, that's standard poverty line basically. But it's also, it says that 18,000 is also for a household of 4 or 5 or 6, or, whereas the poverty guidelines for a household of 5 is considerably more than $18,000. It doesn't take into account additional persons in the household. So I think, in general, maybe we should bring that up as a discussion to talk about as a commission, just regarding the guidelines for what falls under low income and how we want to handle that.
Agree.
And I haven't asked, and I don't know if Mary, I'll put Mary on the spot, I don't think she'll know either, what the percentage of customers fall into that category right now. I think it would be,
We have about 13 customers on that list. It's under 20, I will tell you that.
so it's a very, very, very small amount. So, but for them, and that wouldn't hurt the summaries that have been completed here. I mean, 20, 30 customers is not going to make a difference when we have over 2,200, a little more than that, at least 2,200 customers on the system.
So we did kind of sideline there, but is that something we want to bring up into discussion maybe next meeting?
Sure.
Yes.
Consensus with that? Okay, well, back to where we were as far as the water rates currently in front of us in the ordinance. Any further thoughts on that? I would entertain a motion to approve if anybody so wishes.
I move that we approve ordinance number 1744 as presented.
Okay, have a motion by Commissioner Redlin,
Second.
second by Commissioner Myers. Any further discussion? No. Roll, please.
Yes.
Redlin,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to B, Resolution 1585, the gap waiver. I see, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, I see that. I told you.
Kent?
Well, this is a resolution, I basically turn it over to Mary to start up, and then I'll probably finish what she says. So, what's the requirement? Why do we do this on a regular basis?
Most municipalities do it because they're on a cash basis on receiving money. It does not mean that we're not following GAP, because we are following GAP other than we are cash. And GAP also requires a lot of tracking and depreciation information on all your assets, which is very time consuming and very, I wouldn't say non-efficient, but it's really, it takes a lot of city workers' time. And it really doesn't benefit us that much to track it that way. And so most municipalities do go the gap waiver. I think the city has done it since before I got here, so.
Yeah, and there was an additional, GAP stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. And there was from the Accounting Standards Board about 15 years ago, there was GASB Statement number 34 that put a number of additional requirements in order to meet, say that you were following generally accepted accounting principles. And when she describes the additional assets and depreciation, an example would be like our streets, our entire water system, our entire sewer system, our entire electric system, that there would be a depreciation schedule and then everything else. Well, not all of your streets are going to be replaced at the same time, not your entire. And if it's that situation where you replace the entire system, you got bigger problems than the accounting of it. So that's why most cities across the state of Kansas have gone this route, where you have to pass this resolution on an annual basis, and that gives direction and allows us to, both for the auditors and for the state that checks up on the stuff that we file, whether it's the annual budget or the audit itself, that this resolution is included. So in some ways it seems a little strange, but it has become almost a pro forma thing that is done by most communities across the state of Kansas, and especially communities our size. The very large communities can probably afford to do the extra accounting that's required, but that's about the only ones that are able to. At least to my current understanding. I should use a qualifier with that and not say that's an absolute, but
Yeah.
my understanding.
I will say that I've been asking for 2 years to have somebody come in and give me a good explanation as to the difference between the two, and that's yet to happen. I do appreciate that it is a lot easier to do the waiver and to do things the way we always have done, and I also appreciate that the other way, it makes everybody forced to be more aware about what, our value is within our city and how that falls between here and future values, and how our budget ties into that, and, how we can then account and budget for what needs to happen to fix things that are depreciating and stuff. And I know we pretty much do that anyway in our own way, but I think there's ways you can look at either one, and there's good and there's bad either direction. But like I said, I know the last couple of years I have always voted to go ahead and go with the waiver, to accept it, but I'd still said if we can find somebody who's willing to come in and can give us a good explanation as to the differences and the plus and minuses of both, I think that would be appreciated. For me anyway, maybe nobody else, but I would appreciate that for sure.
We could give that challenge to the auditor and expect them to answer that.
I asked him last year.
Yeah, I didn't last year either.
He didn't want to speak out too much. Anybody else have any other questions, comments, or concerns?
I would motion that we approve Resolution 1585.
A motion from Commissioner Showalter,
I'll second.
a second from Commissioner Howard. Any other discussion? Roll, please.
Showalter,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Redmond,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, on to C, Resolution 1586 to designate depositories. Kent?
I would defer on this one to City Clerk Volk as well.
Annually, the city's required to designate where they are holding their cash and their monies. The city holds, Bank West is our main bank, but we also hold investments at Western State, First National, or FNB, sorry. And then we do investment cash sweeping through Bank West, and that's basically to make sure we're covered with our pledging. Because anything over the FDIC insurance, we have to make sure we are adequately pledged. I do include People's State Bank in the resolution. However, a couple years ago, they have asked us to not include them and that they would let us know when it's time to include them again because of the security pledging rule. And they didn't really need our money. So this is basically designating that all of our money is held in those places.
Any questions or comments? If not, I would entertain.
I move that we approve Resolution 1586.
Motion by Commissioner Redland,
Second that.
second by Commissioner Showalter. Any other questions or comments? Roll, please.
Howard,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, D, Construction Board of Trades Appeals, new appointments. Kent.
And now I'll defer at least with the start to building official Danko. So,
Good evening.
Way to delegate. Good job.
So working on the Construction Board of Appeals and Trades. Have a couple of appointees. One of them is Jonathan Payne. He isn't a resident of the city. He's a resident of the county. Reached out to several other ones. Most of them are pretty busy and they just didn't want to give up the time. So, and then also Commissioner Redland suggested Fort Hawks, and he jumped on it and he was all for it. So, and I guess the only other one would be, we'll probably bring up future, would be the plumber, and searching for that. Of course, we don't have too many master plumbers in town. And I have one gentleman, he's available, years of experience, gonna work on getting his master's hopefully within 4 or 5 months. But he's really interested in helping us out too. So, any questions?
You're saying that Mr. Payne will fill your member-at-large role?
Well, he would actually be, that's what we kind of work on is, instead of a resident of the city, maybe a resident of the county.
Okay.
So, he just got his application turned in.
that's one thing, Commissioner Thompson, he gave me a call today and pointed that out, that it was in the code regarding being a resident of the city. And after discussion with both the city attorney and with Jeff, that's something that we would suggest that maybe we change that requirement in the code, especially for the Construction Advisory Board of Trades and Appeals. You don't want a person from another community, but serving on this board, but there are people that have their business in town, or they operate in town quite a bit, and they live outside of town, but they're still part of the community. And since we have such a small pool of folks to be able to ask to be a part of this board, and the previous building official, Brian, had stated that they never were able to get more than 5 members of this board filled. So, in the last decade or 2 decades worth. So, it's been a difficult time, and I think this might be one requirement that it wouldn't hurt to have us as, a Sherman County resident or a resident within so many miles of the community instead of just the city limits only. Because Jeff has contacted a couple folks and 2 additions that are stone's throw from the community, either Armstrong or the one south of town. And they actually couldn't serve either, because of this requirement. So, it's just a thought process that we were talking about, and then suggest that, since the board isn't meeting just yet, we could, come with an ordinance to change that portion of the code. I'd already talked to you briefly about this requirement, which isn't in a number of other communities' codes as far as master plumber or master electrician. Now, that's what you would prefer, but to have it as the actual requirement for a person that most of the other communities don't put that limitation on. And, there's a couple different people that Jeff has talked to that have had, 10, 15, 20 years of experience, but they haven't gotten the master's license in. That might be a consideration as well, is to change that requirement, but, that's just discussion among staff, and would need direction from you if we would want to put together something like that.
Well, I do know within the code itself regarding, having master licenses, that is preferred, but also further on, it does say that if no suitable licensed individuals are able and or willing to serve, that we may appoint a suitable alternative at our discretion, which I take to read as that we could appoint people who aren't necessarily master plumbers or master electricians or, master in their trade. As far as, being a resident of the city, I agree that if we were to make the change for it to be the county, I think that would still serve the purpose that we need within the city to be handled. It's not so far away that we're going to get people who aren't familiar with our needs and desires and what we have going on here. At the same time, I do feel like if we wanted to make that change would need to happen before we were to approve Jonathan Payne or anybody else who is currently not within the city limits.
And it can just hold them out, table the application until we can get that taken care of pretty quick, so.
Any other thoughts?
Do we need to put that on for like a discussion topic or something later on for the upcoming meeting?
Well, we have, so what is everybody's thoughts regarding changing the guidelines to being in the county instead of in the city limits?
I'm not opposed.
I'm not opposed to it either. You would prefer somebody in the city, but you could put that in that new ordinance, that you prefer somebody, just like the master plumber, you would prefer a master over somebody that wasn't licensed.
I think it's just because we're such a small community. We do have a majority of people that work or live in the county but operate within the city.
So you would prefer it be added to the discretionary section where at our discretion we could choose a county resident instead of a city resident,
Right.
is what you would prefer?
Yes. I agree.
So if we could just get a draft of some sort to reflect that for next meeting, we can
certainly do that.
discuss it then.
I still think the other application could be acted on by the commission tonight if they wanted to.
So would like the appropriate movement be, I move that we table Jonathan Payne's application for the until we get the new ordinance written up for the, what do I want to say? For the, for the code is changed, thank you. But I move that we approve.
You only do one at a time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's do that one first.
So I don't know that we necessarily have to move to table his. We can just move to approve the other one,
Okay.
and then if we can keep his application on file to decide, and whenever we get the ordinance changed, we can then, the application will still be on file, we still have it,
Sure.
and we can look at it then.
So I move that we approve Court Hawks's application.
A motion by Commissioner Redland, second by Commissioner Showalter. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Redland,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to E, the stainless steel piping for the wastewater treatment plant. Kent?
Neil. Neil.
Superintendent Thornton is here as well.
Neil.
And-
Defer to Neil.
We are actually looking at changing the piping for our aeration system to stainless steel. We've had some direction from Brian Bowles with KRWA and Kevin Puckett with the city of Colby that says it'll last a lot longer, you'll have less trouble with it. So we're looking at the longevity of the stainless steel pipe. You don't have to paint it, you don't have to worry about it wearing out in a short manner. We have changed 10 of them because our aeration is not good. What other pictures did you have? Just this
I
one?
only had a couple, but this is probably the only one that's.
Okay, but we're supposed to have kind of an even layer of bubbles coming across the top of the water to help with our microorganisms, with the digestion of the wastewater, and to move everything forward, and we're just not there yet. So in order to move forward, we're trying to change the pipes and change the tees underneath the water that actually do the aeration with the rubber boots on them.
And it's the drop pipes, you have a large pipe that goes around in a circumference, and then the drop pipes that come down, those are the ones that are getting changed out. And it's about 8 foot, 10 foot long,
14 foot.
14 foot, sorry. And then it has a little T at the bottom and a little boot that comes out. And it's putting oxygen into the water, and like you said, you need to have the oxygen in the water to feed the good bugs and help them become more numerous than the bad bugs within the wastewater treatment plant. So that's, and he has an estimate for one, and it was just multiplied. That was an example, that was the quote that we received, and it's from the regular supplier that we normally buy these type of things on. And because of the 24 purchase, it ended up to be a cost of $11,000 and some dollars, $788.32. So that's why it's being brought to you, just to get your approval going forward, so.
Any questions or comments? I want to ask, this kind of leads back, where are we, or what is the thought process currently regarding the new belting system?
I think that we're gonna put the belt filter press system on hold because some of the things that we have learned and that we're kind of figuring out is we may not be able to utilize that as well as we thought we were going to.
And with the belt filter press, it's a big ticket item that would be an additional thing to maintain and operate. But it seems like we're correcting different things within the plant right now that I think we gotta see if it'll operate at a much better level once we make some of these changes that we're doing. And basically replacing and repairing a couple different things within the wastewater treatment plant, and then we'll see if the belt filter press will be as much of a benefit as it was originally thought. And this has really changed in the last month or so, the last few weeks, because of the review by KRWA, Kansas Rural Water Association representative, and also from another wastewater treatment plant operator over from Goldby to give different direction and recommendations. I think we're getting on, we're heading in the right route, and we may end up not having to expend a lot of money for a big ticket item regarding the belt filter press. We might still, I mean, we're not giving 100% guarantee at this point, but it's looking promising. So that's where we're at right now. Maybe ask again in another month or two and we'll see how far we are.
Do we know if these pipes have ever been replaced before, or are they original?
They have been replaced, but it's been quite some time ago that they were replaced. We found some deficiencies in some pipes where there's holes above the water level, so it's not putting the air into the water to give us dissolved oxygen to keep our good bugs going. When you don't have enough dissolved oxygen, then it's hard to keep your bugs up and running and keeping everything digesting and working the way it was designed to do. So we're hoping, we're taking DO levels and we're doing salimeter tests every day to see where we're at and where we need to go from here on out. At least have a footprint to changes and learning curve.
Measure the progress that we're making. So,
Well, it's good to see the steps of progress, moving forward with it, and, I would love to see us not have to spend all that money on it, belt press system, we don't have to, so whatever we can do to maintain and improve what we have, as long as it will function as we need it to, I think that's good.
So if we're heading in the right direction, it's just gonna take a little trial and error and see where we get to from here.
What are we looking at as far as a belt press cost in comparison to what we're? Is it-
1.2?
$1.5 million is what the loan was for right now.
Didn't we have like
It's gonna have
a
to-
grant in there with that too, if I remember right? or no?
I think we were going to attempt to use ARPA funds with it as well, if we could, but
Another thing that we'll have to utilize with the belt filter press is more storage and ways of pumping water around. So it's gonna be quite a project.
yeah, it wasn't just the belt filter press itself, it was some other things going on with the wastewater treatment plant. But it's also coming from the engineering firm as well, as far as let's wait and see as far as the progress, because they've been involved as well. So it's more wait and see. It's not a guarantee, but there are some promising things. Of course, other things are breaking down in the plant as well. We've had a blower go out today that Neil had to go take care of and get the, which helps move the air to where this is at. So, I mean, there's other things. I mean, it's a plant, so there's gonna be things that break down on a regular basis, and it's just a matter of maintaining them and keep it operating. The thing we're trying to get to is get it to an operational level so we know what it can produce. And are we still not hitting limits when it's operating at its peak efficiency? There's also been, the maintenance of these pipes was not as stellar as it could be, and I think that was affecting the operations as well. And the end result is, I think we're gonna get to a point where we'll know what the performance is at its peak efficiency, and then we can make the big ticket decisions.
any other questions?
I appreciate the work you do out there. You guys do an important job out there, and I think it's important that we make sure that you guys have the tools you need to get the job done.
We appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Is it okay for us to go ahead and purchase this then?
Make a motion to approve the purchase of the materials for the wastewater plant.
I'll second that.
A motion by Commissioner Showalter and a second by Commissioner Howard. Any other further discussion? Roll.
Horn,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, and F, termination of the airport lease for Barker Farm Services.
Members of the commission, this is a lease agreement that was approved last year. with Barker Farm Services Incorporated. The intention of the lease agreement was it's a lease agreement in order to use lots 1 and 2 at Renterfield, and he was going to build a hangar on that space. That has not worked out for Barker Farm Services Incorporated to move forward with that. He has discussed it with another entity in order that they would be interested in the lots. It's just not going to be able to work out at this time with Barker Farm Services. The city attorney, had a specific item within the agreement to say that it could not be subleased, and because of that, we had requested from Barker Farm Services that they have a voluntary termination of the lease. Am I saying that correct, Jake?
Yeah.
And so we presented this to Danny Barker, who has done quite a bit of work at Goodland Airport in the past, and it's not a reflection on that. It's just he's just not able to move forward. We presented it to him, and he has indicated that he is ready to sign the voluntary termination of the lease. So this is presented for your approval.
You may have any questions? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we terminate the airport lease with Barker Farm Services, Inc.
I have a motion from Commissioner Howard,
I'll second.
second from Commissioner Redland. Any other further discussion? Roll.
Showalter,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to discussion items. A, discussion on proposed ordinance to allow people to maintain or keep one type of fowl, chickens, within the city limits. Who would like to start? Kent?
Sure. This is presented as information. I've had a couple different requests at to the city from various folks. I know that it has come up to the commission a couple different times. But there hasn't, and it's coming back again because there was stated that they would come back for some sort of direction whether or not to proceed with a proposed ordinance. There was, in the last couple times this was presented to the commission, there was some different objections provided by either different citizens that came forward and spoke, and also the animal control officer that had some concerns regarding any proposed ordinance allowing ownership of chickens. Staff has looked through it and has also provided at the last meeting some different the information that was already presented. And then included in the memo to the board provided a list of different items of different objections, and then provided a potential ordinance for allowing chickens and the different things that are stated within the ordinance that addresses those objections. You know, the potential for chickens bringing in foxes or other predators into town. You know, it states that the facility should be built to keep dogs, cats, and wildlife from gaining entry, and that it would be inspected to do so. Also about dogs getting loose and getting into coops, chicken coops. Coops that are not healthily maintained or food for the chickens is not correctly stored. It does have items within the proposed ordinance that state what should be done to prevent those type of things from happening. And also that the prior to the issuance of a permit, an inspection will be made of the applicant's facility for compliance with these regulations. So it isn't just by the person say so, while I built something for them. You just have to believe me that they would have to meet the conditions of the ordinance. That doesn't mean that there won't be problems, you know, or there can be problems. But just like with the animal ordinances we already have regarding dogs and cats, there can be complaints filed and then in different places inspected, whether they have too many dogs, you know, too many different animals or dangerous animals involved, or the animals are not being taken care of correctly. So that's what a lot of these things address. It also addresses the number of chickens, whether there's roosters or not. This proposed possible ordinance would say no roosters at all, because that is one objection that a lot of towns have to deal with, is, you know, the noise problem with roosters. And then the policy regarding dead chickens, or whether they'd be allowed to kill them on site, and that's no, at least not on purpose. And then different penalties involved, which are not really, the actual amount for the penalty is not included because, you know, that would be a decision to be made later. This is really just for a starting point for discussion. And then also to have 4 chickens. You know, that would be the maximum number. Just like we have a current maximum number of dogs, current maximum number of cats. And then where is this housing of chickens? How close to the neighbors? That's often a concern with the neighbors, how close it is to their line, whether any odor or other problems that develop from the chickens being on the neighbor's yard. And whether they need to be completely enclosed or can be let loose, and then whether any other fowl. You know, you start with chickens and people say, well, a quail or a pheasant or a duck, they're not that much different from a chicken. I can understand that, but let's start with chickens if we want to go there. And it's just an if, and this is just a discussion item. So, instead of stating the different things and that there is no solution for different objections, this is a possible solution to some of those objections. So it doesn't mean it's the perfect solution. Other people may have different ideas about what a better ordinance would be, but this is what staff looked through, different ordinances at different communities. This was the coming together of something that could be at least a starting point for discussion. So that's where staff will leave it at this point. I don't know if the police chief or the building official would have any additional comments to what I stated regarding this. No, they'd rather not say anything. So. But I'll leave it at that. So.
Okay, thoughts?
My understanding, the animal control officer has stated that she is not in support of the ordinance. Is that correct?
She did in general. I didn't ask her after this proposed ordinance, but I talked with her at length one day about her objections previously, and she stated, those are my concerns. Our biggest concerns are the dogs going after the chickens or wildlife going after the chickens, and as far as the maintenance of the facilities themselves. And so this gives a couple answers to that. I don't know if she's pretty straightforward about what her objections are. So
Anybody else?
there may be members of the public that are here to speak on it as well. I don't know.
Well, I'd certainly like to hear what they have to
I
say.
would too.
Would anybody like to take the microphone?
Megan Weiss.
Hello.
Hello.
I just moved this thing. I just want to speak on like the dogs and the wildlife. The other day I had 2 foxes playing in the front yard in my neighborhood. In town, we have possums, raccoons, you can drive down the roads at night and see them. So I don't know that it would be any different from that. I think if your coops are well maintained, that you're not going to have a problem with dogs, or if your yard's fenced in, you're not going to have problems with dogs. I think one of the things I talked about was making sure that they weren't on vacant lots. I think that would be important so that people are there, home, where the chickens are kept. I do appreciate all of you taking this into consideration. I think it's a good thing to have for kids to see where their food comes from. I do have I don't know, you weren't here when I came up here before. The membership side of Farm Bureau has agreed to help put on a class like a one-time class to kind of teach people how to maintain coops, what they need for chickens, that we could put together and help with that. And I cannot think of her name right now, the lady that runs the 4-H poultry program has agreed to help with that as well. So that would be something to consider maybe, where we can kind of teach people about backyard chickens. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I know Deb has something she wants to say. I'll say this, I've had probably no less than 20 phone calls or text messages or emails about this, so it's probably been, since I have been here in the last 3 months, has been one of the issues I think that is, most people are interested in, they have a thought on, and so I appreciate everybody that has reached out to me and let me know kind of what they think. Honestly, when I got into this and started reading through this, it was not something that I'd really ever considered before, had to think about, so I appreciate the research and the information that you put together, Kent. It's given me food for thought, for sure.
I agree. People have strong feelings about chickens. Who knew? Both positive and negative. Sure.
The question that I have gotten to is about bird flu and bringing it into our community. Bird flu is not something that humans can get. We have no poultry operations around us. I spoke with the animal health inspector for the USDA. It helps that he was my dad. And he said there has been no cases this side of the Mississippi and this side of the Rocky Mountains in this area, except for one that happened this weekend in South Dakota. But as far as that goes, we're not a major threat for anything happening with bird flu.
Megan, I'm interested in asking, the ordinance as proposed, or as, not as proposed, I guess, but the sample ordinance that we have suggests 4 chickens, no more than 5 feet away from a property line, in a coop, no free range, no roosters, or all those things that you support and feel like are a good idea?
I feel like 4 to 6 chickens. Chickens are flocking, or they're, how do I want to say it? They're animals that love to be social animals. Yeah. So I feel like 4 to 6 would be good. I agree with no roosters in town. Hens are fairly quiet. You can clip their wings so that they cannot fly over a fence. And roosters are loud and annoying and would wake up your neighbors and you would get calls on them, so I feel like that's fair. I feel like keeping them a distance the way, especially from your neighbor's house, I think that's okay. 5, 10 feet, 15 feet, because they are fairly quiet, and they really don't smell as long as you keep them clean. And, you know, that's not hard to do. You rake out hay, put in fresh hay, and so they're fairly cheap. I mean, they'll eat your leftovers, they eat bugs, snakes, whatever they can find. So they're fairly cheap to keep, and they really are affectionate. So, you know, kids can raise them as a pet, and also get to see where their food comes from and that whole process. And you don't have to worry about chicks if you have no roosters, so, and still get good eggs to eat. So they're more nutritious eggs than you buy from the grocery store.
Just a curiosity, how many city girl, how many eggs would you get from 4 to 6?
So during the warmer months, they'll lay an egg a day, each chicken, usually. In the wintertime, they slow down a little bit, so you would get fewer eggs, but I feel like that's another opportunity for sharing. Neighbors would love them, you know, they're good, and I buy eggs from people all the time that have, you know, farm eggs. I feel like, you know, you talk about free range, I feel like roaming your backyard is not bad if you clip their wings, but as far as roaming the town, no.
Understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
I talked with the trash man of Goodland, and he made the comments that, you know, all the, like the hay and everything like that, even like the chicken poop, it can all be disposed of in yard waste as well. So just clarified it with him. One thing that he kind of cautioned is like a dead carcass going into yard waste. He said probably we should do something different that way. I think it says trash. I think it said like double bagged in the trash.
Basically double bagged.
Yeah. Maybe we work out something with the county or something like that. I don't know what that looks like, but you know, because they do decomposing piles out there, and you know, if you have a dead chicken, make sure that you get it to a decomposing, or you take it out there yourself to be decomposed of, since you're in responsibility of the chicken, rather than putting it in the trash.
At that point, it's no different than Thanksgiving, throwing your carcass into the dumpster.
Very true.
True.
Mr. Howard didn't realize you were a zoologist.
Just a fan of Thanksgiving. Well, here's where my thoughts lie currently. I've had lots of good discussions the last couple weeks or so with people coming to the store and talking about it. And I do feel like this proposed ordinance that's in here was done very well and does cover the majority of conversation topics that I've had over the past couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like maybe we should take this and just kind of let it marinate for the next couple weeks. Maybe bring it back under the discussion again next week after we've had a chance to really sit down and maybe continue to have these conversations with people with some proposed information to share with them to see how they feel. And then maybe next meeting, under the discussion item, we can, if we feel like it, refine it towards a proposed ordinance that we might want to move forward with at that point. Sure.
Is there a way that maybe we could put this proposed ordinance on the website so that people can see it? Because I think you need to get it out into the public eye so that they know what you're presenting.
I think as long as it's marked as strictly informational at the moment, you know,
Yeah.
I think that would be fine.
I would agree with you, Aaron. I think more time to hear what people are thinking right now. I know I've had a lot of people reach out to me, but I would encourage, and I'm excited that, you know, people are here to hear us talk about it and, you know, want to provide their opinions, but I still want to hear, you know, more people and what they have to say. I think it's important to take ownership of your government and let us know what you think and show up here and, you know, step up like Megan did and say what you think and you feel, because in the end, you know, we're trying our best to represent you and what you guys want, and I want to hear some more opinions.
What do you guys think?
That works.
That's fine.
Consensus? Just bring it back under discussion next week and we'll move from there.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to B, the joint city-county session. Kent?
Well, next week, and the county requested, we had a discussion with county and then they refined as far as the time. But they would like to meet next Monday at 5:30. Well, not at 5, at 5:30 at the Woolock building. Have a joint meeting. We'll have a little bit of a follow-up as far as the presentation that the Sherman County Community Development did regarding the housing study. And as far as specific action items, maybe not even action items, but specific routes to pursue as a result of that housing study. A couple different tools to pursue as for the city commission and the county commission. But then in addition to that, the main topic of conversation is to discuss the sales tax ballot issue, if we're going to move forward with that, and to have that discussion. And the commission itself had asked to have this a little bit of a discussion item regarding what, if there's anything additional that you would want to have prepared in order to have a fruitful discussion with the county commission next week. So, if there's anything that you'd like staff to get prepared for that meeting, or to ask for additional information from the county regarding it, as for your knowledge heading into that meeting.
Well, I think as far as our side so far, the main discussion has been, you know, what main roadways would be looking at using this towards, and, you know, and the cost of what those would be. And I think we've gotten that information generally. I don't know if anybody else has got anything else they're needing. You know, one thing I just like think of a lot of different things, you know, are we, you know, as far as the sales tax goes, you know, if we were to pursue it, does it have to be strictly for road infrastructure, or could it be used for other infrastructure issues as well? Or is that something all up for discussion?
That would be up for discussion,
When you get there.
and the crafting of the language would have to be obviously tailored to that.
Is there something you're thinking of in particular?
Not specifically, I just don't think we should just be so narrowly focused on one specific thing for something like this that can provide benefit for an extended period of time. You know, I just think we should go in open-minded towards what other issues we feel we may have that a sales tax could benefit.
Sure.
You know, just in general. But no, I don't have a specific issue in mind other than that. So it's 5:30. Good for everybody, I hope.
5:30 is good for me. Where at again? Woolock? Is that right?
Yeah, Woolock Building.
Excited to have the opportunity to sit down and talk with him. Hopefully it'll set a good tone for a good working relationship for the next several years. So
Yeah,
it's great. We'll have a chance to sit down and talk with him.
agreed. Okay, we'll move on to reports then. City Manager Kent. So very repetitive.
Can't show today.
There were a couple things included in your, in the agenda packet. One is, and I might ask Police Chief Hayes to speak briefly on this. I think he's mentioned it before. But regarding the, an offer that we've received from T-Mobile regarding cellular devices for the police department.
Hello?
So, yeah, we were in contact with T-Mobile, and they're offering a program. It's called Connecting Heroes, where the original thing was free service for 10 years. Well, 2 years have already passed. So it's basically saying we will get free service for 8 years. So that's roughly saving $4,500 a year. I met with Ken about it, and also Josh and Jake, and everything's on the up and up. I even asked the guy, what's the catch? There's got to be a catch. He said, no, we received a grant for this program. So, you know, thinking, you know, 8 years saving $4,500 a year adds up to a nice little chunk. Even after the program is over, of course, we would have to start paying after that. And from meeting with Josh and speaking to the representative, it would still be cheaper than Verizon. This is just for police department phones, and no other city phones or anything are included in this. So I guess what I'm asking is it okay if we sign that contract, which is the one I think is in your packet? There's, and I know you see like $15 and, you know, all the way up to $40, $46. But the first rate plan, which gives unlimited talk and text, unlimited high-speed data, and so on. We also get priority service over this. So if there's a natural disaster or, you know, some large incident, our lines would have priority over any other lines. So, any questions or concerns?
You good with coverage? With how it's?
Yeah, we actually got a demo phone, and it was comparable to Verizon. Where Verizon was at one bar, T-Mobile was at one bar. Because what they do is they're going off of towers, and so whatever tower, let's say Verizon has one north of town, when you get there with a T-Mobile phone, it's going to piggyback on that tower. So we did that for a couple of days, and we drove north, south, east, west, you know, which, I mean, honestly, it's not very often we're going to be out in those areas, but, you know, in the city, it's very comparable to Verizon. And we'll keep the same phones that we have now. All they do is they send you a SIM card. We'll keep the same numbers. So there's really no differences except a SIM card and not paying $4,500 a year.
So if you decide to go with this and we use it for 8 years, and at the end of those 8 years you want to come back, we haven't signed that kind of contract with them, anything, right? Just gonna switch back?
Well, no. This is the contract for Connecting Heroes. So once this is over, this program, then they may ask us, okay, this program's over, will you sign a contract, you know, now, for paid service? So, at that time, it would be really up to us, whether, you know, if we switch or not. And this is a month-to-month contract, So if, say in 6 months, we're like, no, this isn't what you told us it was, and we can get out of the contract that way.
Will
Will we
we
incur any penalties
penalties
from
from
Verizon
Verizon
by taking your guys' phones off of their plan?
No,
Josh?
they're all free and clear.
I
I
guess
guess
as long as,
so
I
I
didn't
didn't
take
take
the
the time to read all the
fine
print in that contract personally,
There's a lot of fine print
there.
there.
Yeah.
You know,
You know,
just
just
kind of hit the main, you know, the
features,
features,
as long as
you know,
you
feel
feel
like
like
the
the
available features, and
there
there's
is everything that you need. And
Oh,
the
absolutely.
coverage
is
is
good.
good.
Yes.
No,
I don't foresee any problem with making the switch personally.
I agree.
I agree.
Like a no-brainer.
And that gives you extra money in your budget.
Absolutely.
It's already spent, believe me.
I didn't spend it.
No, but you will.
Sure, you got ideas.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a churn.
I'm gonna use that one.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah, I don't know if
you
you
need to
need
make a motion on this, or they just.
And just direct staff to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a actually go and make a change if that's what you wish to do.
Thank you.
There's also the monthly fund balance report is included in your package. We did have the airport pre-construction, the airport project pre-construction meeting this afternoon. They're looking at starting on April 4th. They may be mobilizing the week before that, maybe 2 weeks, just depends, more on weather than anything else. But, so that will be starting in less than 4 weeks, well, 4 weeks from today, as far as that project. And that project will continue until the end of August, depending on construction and weather and all other things. They do have, as part of that project, there will be a time period, a short time period where it's adjacent to the main runway that they'll actually shut the main runway down for a short time. And they'll be communicated to, in fact, it's already in some ways been communicated to the people operating at the airport regarding it, as far as regarding the main runway. The KDOT also announced last week that we received another aviation grant. It's the preservation grant that will replace the joint seal for about 50% of the main runway and the taxiways out there. And then also a couple other things involved with it. It'll be over $400,000 that will be granted. So that probably won't occur. The earliest it could occur would be October and November of this year. But it'd be a pretty likely chance that it'll be just held over until the following year. But KDOT usually announces those aviation grants at the turn of the year. And so they've only taken 3 months to announce it. But we ended up receiving a grant, and there'll be additional paperwork that'll come to you eventually for the grant agreement and acceptance of the grant that will occur regarding that. I do have on here, but I guess I don't have as much information as I should regarding the commissioner's tour of city facilities. I don't have exact dates for you, but I would want to know which day of the week would work better for you, so staff can put together a plan to have a tour of city facilities to be able to do it. I know with a couple people's businesses that it might be difficult to set a time, but
Coming up pretty quick, it will be.
if we could have a few hours towards the end of the day, or even I know it would be difficult for at least one of the commissioners on a weekend morning, or something, but maybe at the end of the day, now that we're getting a little bit of light at the end of the day, and in a couple weeks they'll even be better. So we should have enough light to look at a few things if we could start at the end of the day, sometime 3 or 4 o'clock, or even 5. Is there a day of the week that works better or not?
Well, Mondays and Tuesdays preferably, but I mean, I could do Wednesday, Thursday if we're meeting after 2 or that type of thing, for me, at least.
So I don't think there's a preference. For me, as long as there's a little bit of notice, you know.
Yeah,
Like I
just a
said, we
little
get
bit of notice.
about a month from now, though, there will be
Right.
probably very little chance of me being free for a while.
We'll discuss it in department head meeting tomorrow. Come up with a couple dates for you.
I got one question for you, Kent. When's the 17th Street project supposed to start?
They had mentioned April as well, but there hasn't been a pre-construction meeting set up as yet. Have you heard anything additional, Kent?
So it was gonna start in April as well. There's already a contractor set up for it, so there's not that much it's not gonna take much to set up the meeting to get that started. Last we heard was in April, but we haven't heard anything probably for 2 or 3 months. Unless I haven't heard. Anything else?
Any other questions for Ken?
Oh, thank you, Ken.
Okay, that's our commissioner reports.
Or on my
right
right
side,
side.
Mr. Showalter.
I guess let's start off by mentioning that anybody that does have any thoughts about the chicken ordinance, I think we'd all appreciate to hear what you have to say. If you're at home watching on YouTube or whatever, you know, I think the best way to get all of us is probably through our city email. You know, drop us a line and let us know kind of what you think, or if you know us or have our numbers, give us a holler and give us your feedback on that. So I'm interested to see what people think, and I'd probably be remiss if I didn't send out a congratulations to our high school girls basketball team that won sub-state this week. It was nice to see the community come together and fill up the Max Jones and come together and watch that victory. So I think that was pretty neat. So good luck to them. Thursday as they go to state, and Kenton, I'm sure you're ready for Thursday. You ready to rock and roll?
Good. All right. That's all I got.
Commissioner Myers?
I agree with Jason. If you have any concerns, whether positive or negative about the chickens, please come find us, email us. I also like to just thank everybody for coming out and giving us your evening thoughts, listening to us.
Commissioner Howard?
About the same. I'd like to thank all the city patrons for all their input, and the city employees for all they do, the office staff and everybody included, and all the people that are on all the city boards. We really appreciate that too.
Commissioner Redland?
Yeah, I appreciate Court reaching back out and signing up for that. I think it's gonna be a good fit. He's gonna be good for what he does. Also, yeah, I agree with everybody else, what they've said about the chickens. Please reach out. You know, I wanna hear what everybody has to say about it. So, trying to learn with you.
Okay, for Mayor's report, just want to say, you guys know we've been having several different work sessions
amongst ourselves. It was free for anybody who wanted to come, but it was pretty much just us regarding things that we feel is important to the commission and things we want to work on moving forward as a group. We do have kind of a nice outline of things we have discussed, and we're going to be at some point in the future having another meeting to kind of prioritize the things that we want to work on amongst the things that we had discussed. I do know that we also discussed having this information sent out to all the city staff so that you guys can see the things that we are working on, and we value your input too. So as you look through the things that we're discussing and the things that we feel is important to us and how it pertains to you guys personally and also professionally in your departments. Please share any feedback and information that you guys have regarding that stuff for us. So that's all I have. I would entertain a motion to dismiss.
I'll move.
Moved by Commissioner Redland, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Myers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.